All right. So, hello everyone. This is Frosty, and welcome to my channel. And this is like the third time you're recording this. And it's been a while since I've been on YouTube while I've been working and all that, so I couldn't make videos. But now I'm back, and I'm going to be addressing this video or reacting and making commentary on this video that I ran into on YouTube a few weeks ago. So it's made by this YouTube person who has 260 subscribers. I don't know how to say that name, so I'm not going to try. But basically, she's talking about how SJWs are not ruining the gaming industry. And since I disagree with this, I would like to see her views, comment on them, and we can move on. So I'm going to try to make this video not too long, but her video is already 17 minutes, so we're going to try to find a way. But basically, I think this is going to be a fun way to come back to YouTube. I'm going to try to make more videos in the future for those who actually like it, like the average of like 30 people who watch my videos. So yeah, that'll be cool. And you can like and sub, that'll be cool. So let's begin. So the context of this video, basically she's trying to defend SJW culture that's coming into video gaming. And I'd say it's more of infecting video gaming industry because, well, SJW is like an ideology, right? And ideologies are allowed to do whatever they want when they're in a certain industry, right? But then the problem with SJWs in gaming industry or media in general is that they're trying to force that ideology on the people who are creating the media or the art. At the same time, they're trying to force their ideology onto consumers who would care less about it. All right. So, for example, they don't want, like, for example, there's a section here that says over sexualization in video games. Like, I like looking at pretty women, so they want to force me not to look at it because, well, their ideology says it's bad. So that's the issue that I have with this. And let's just see what she has to say. So right now, with a section where she's basically talking about a brief history of diverse characters, of which, well, let's just talk about diversity, right? So we're going to see what she has to say about diversity and representation in video games, and then we're going to comment on that.
Video games have come a long way from what they used to be, from the gameplay to the graphics, and even how the focus has shifted more on the story, with narrative-based games becoming more popular. This of course leads us to how characters have progressed over the years. It's without doubt amazing how fleshed out a video game character can be now, as well as how the player can get emotionally attached to them. As the industry has grown, there has been an introduction to more diversity and representation. Some players have...
So one thing that you need to talk about, sorry for speeding it up and slowing it down over there, but I just wanted it to move faster. But basically, one thing that you need to talk about when you're talking about diversity, you need to basically understand what diversity means and what representation means, because I don't get it. So I get what diversity and representation is like on paper, but as SJWs, I think you need to basically state what you expect from the industry, and then maybe your market can be clearly established, just like a market of normal heterosexual people is established. So for example, a restaurant knows why people are coming to their restaurant, what type of food they want to eat. All right. And then if another person starts running the company, just starts forcing food onto people, well, they're not going to eat it. They're not going to buy, or they're not going to accept what you're trying to push onto them because, well, they don't like that. So that's the problem with diversity a lot of times with video games, because you're forcing a black character, like diversity with Superman. I remember a few years ago, I don't know, some time ago, they wanted to force a black Superman, of which, no, Superman isn't black, he's white. That's forced diversity. Why are you changing a character's race in the name of representation? That doesn't make sense. Or forced diversity, like sometimes you might just have a black character, like in The Witcher. Black people exist in the Witcher universe, but they exist on a different continent because, well, The Witcher is a game based in the Nordic realm, like, no, not Nordic, like the Poland, right? And Poland and all that continent at the time where the Witcher's events would have been happening, if it was the real world, there were no black people there. All right. And the game actually deals with diversity a lot when you look at the creatures that exist, or the people or the races that exist in the game. But because it's not black people, that's no longer representation. I mean, there's representation in The Witcher. It just represents different looks of how people look at each other when they're looking at groups, but people don't want to talk about that. So I don't know. I think SJWs have a problem that they leave things way too vague to the point where when a creator is now creating something and they try to appease them, they either just mess up or they just give up and say, well, what's the point? So I think that's the problem with SJWs. They need to specify what exactly they want. All right, and we want to talk about this again when we get to like sexualization. Like, if you're saying you don't want women to be beautiful and sexualized, so are you saying people like the women in games no longer need to be attractive? You want ugly women in games? I don't know. I think you need to specify what you want and then start making noise. Like, don't sound like a child who's crying. Then you're like, why are you crying? They can't answer. Like, that mentality doesn't make sense to me. But anyways, let's move on.
Expressed a disdain towards this, saying it's forced and an attempt on being more politically correct, which, okay, we'll come back to that later. Female characters especially have changed. We've seen an increase in female protagonists, as well as an increase in
Alright, so an increase in female characters, that's not a problem. I'm going to say that out of the gate so that if I forget to then mention it later, well, that's no problem. Like, right now, the ones that are on screen, I know Ellie, Ciri, this is the girl from Assassin's Creed, I forgot her name, and then this is Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. I actually like her a lot, the Horizon Zero Dawn girl. I haven't played The Witcher and Assassin's Creed, and then the other one, I don't even know who she is. And then there's Ellie. I liked Ellie in the first game because the character was well developed and fleshed out. In the second game, most of the things that she does not make sense. So that's why I don't like her in the second game. It's because a lot of things that she does contradicts her character, because people don't just snap the way she snapped. Of which, if they wrote the story better and it made sense, like her actions making sense, then that would have been fine. If she snapped and she turned into a totally different person, they could have wrote that better, but they didn't. That's why people don't like Ellie. They don't like Ellie. It's not saying that they don't like Ellie in the second game because, well, she's a woman or she was fighting Abby. Or no, that was not the issue. The reason why they don't like her is because of how her character just doesn't make sense in terms of her actions and her decisions in the game. So yeah, let's move on.
showcasing strong female characters. Some do not like this increase, and I don't know if they've used the term SJW treatment, but I'll refer it as such. The SJW treatment is used on characters that we don't typically see in video games. Damn, you don't need me to explain. It's basically diverse characters, women of colour, or women shouldn't have a body type that is not.
Big boo.
I've even seen this used towards.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm black, and I'm not going to lie. I like movies like the MCU, right? Most of the races I see in the MCU are white people, but I don't care about that. As long as it makes sense or it doesn't feel forced, I'm fine with it. If the story is good, I'm fine with it. Who cares? Who literally care? Like, okay, let's just move on. But basically, that's my point. Like, the moment that you see yourself noticing things like, there should be certain amount of black people in a certain movie. I mean, that doesn't work. And the amount of, like, right now, if you take math and take the demographics of America and compare them to video games, I think it's actually spot on. The amount of white people that are in video games compared to the amount of people who are in real life, white people who are in America, it's actually almost to the number, right? Same as with black people and all that. So what's your problem? Representation. People are being well represented. You might actually argue that since there's a more increase in representation of black people and other ethnicities in America, you'd start to think that there's over-representation. So what's your point? Like, I think you need to get to your point because you're confusing me. Like, you need to get your point.
Characters like Reboot Lara Croft and Remake Jill Valentine being dubbed Tank Top Girl, which, yeah, I know, what creative name, supposedly has become a trend to have characters like this. However, I can really only think of Lara and Jill who really fall under this Tank Top Girl term. It only seems like this term is being used to dismiss the idea of having lead action girl types. Honestly, I don't find an issue with characters like this, and I feel like it's a watered down representation of these characters. Sure, comparing.
How is it a watered down? When you make a point like this, you need to basically then tell us why. I work as a tutor, and usually when I'm marking my students' work, I usually say things like, when they answer a question half-baked, I say how or why. Things like, because these things are important for me to understand your point. If you just say she's a watered down of what she could be, well, how is she watered down? Is it because she's wearing a tank top? Who cares? I mean, there are women we see every day outside wearing tank tops, so who cares? And I'm in Africa. Like, Africa is more reserved than you guys out there, because you guys in the West are basically just crazy with your dressing. Like, you wear certain clothes that black people wouldn't wear. But when I'm watching these things, I'm okay with it, because I'm just like, well, yeah, who cares, right? So I don't get it. Like, you need to specify how they are watered down. If you don't specify, how am I supposed to address your point? You see, that's one of the defenses that SJWs use. They give you a very half-baked point, and you're left with such a broad way of addressing it, to the point where you won't know where to start, because you don't know what they actually mean. That's one problem that I have with SJW points. In this point, like right now, we're over halfway. Like right now, if you look at this, over halfway the point of a brief history of this, but she hasn't made a point yet. She only noted that, well, more female characters, more like, but she hasn't gotten to a point where we can say, okay, you're right, a diversity and the other word, what, representation, those are important. We haven't gotten that. So where's your point exactly?
Then from their older counterparts, they are different, and I honestly love both. I grew up with Bimbo Lara. Yeah, I remember her being called that, which, yikes. But I do find myself liking all the different versions of her, Bimbo Lara being my favourite. Jill, however, has always been like how she's shown in the remake, especially after her experience at Ackley. I do agree she seems to lose empathy she had, but that's because situations are portrayed differently in the remake. I wouldn't entirely blame it on the fault of her character. I mean, we still have characters like big-breasted pretty girls. Tifa, for example. Not hating on Tifa, I know she's more than that, which I'm sure appeased these gamers and made them happy.
Okay, so let's talk about Tifa, for example. So you're saying that you insinuated that there's a problem with her having big breasts. You pointed it out, of which the thing is, if you're having big boobies, like, if it's a problem, then I think you should start talking to actual human beings who have big boobies. Because if you're saying that there's something to criticize about someone having big boobies, then don't start with characters that are created, most probably inspired by real human beings, and go talk to those big, like, human beings and say, well, there's a problem. Game creators are now creating characters with big boobies just like you, so you are the problem. You should go to the source, because, well, the source most probably is how men like big boobies. But still, my point still stands to say that if you're saying there's a problem with Tifa for having big boobies, then there should be a problem with the real woman who has big boobies. Like, I don't know, and I don't see how this has to do with representation. But well, let's move on.
However, something that has never really left the industry is the over-sexualization of women. I have to say though, it's gotten a lot better. But when you do see it and when people complain about it, it's for a reason, alright? Let me explain.
Okay, now let's get to the part that I think that's where I'm going to end my video, the over-sexualization. If you watch this part, I think, well, there's this interesting part. If this video actually gets a lot of views, then I might do part 2. But let's move on to over-sexualization, because SJWs play one side. They say that certain characters are over-sexualized, but men are also over-sexualized. Of course, there's a lot of, like, most of the time, these characters are not looked at sexually by most of the people looking at it, because most people are playing video games anyways. These type of video games that you're talking about are men. So I'm not going to be looking at someone like Joel and say, ooh, damn, that he's sexy. I'm not going to be doing that, because I don't find that sexy. But if I look at a character like Jill Valentine you just mentioned, I would say, damn, she's sexy. So yeah, guys are visual. We're going to look at things in a visual point of view, all right? And then women most probably are going to be looking at things differently. And some of the things that you look at when you're playing a video games, you're forced to be visual, because that's the only thing that you're going to take away from it, right? So then that's when you might say, oh yeah, he's hot, but then that's not something that first came to mind. But because men are built visually, most of the time, sure, if a character is beautiful, that's probably going to be the first thing that comes to mind, like, whoa, she's actually quite pretty. Okay, so what's she all about? That's what you're going to start to think. That's how normal people think. So when you start saying over-sexualization, I think, again, you need to specify what you mean so that I can tackle your point, because there are women who look like that. Are they over sexualized? Of course, yeah, there are some scenes where these women are wearing things that wouldn't make sense in the real world. Fine, fine. You can say that, but then point out the problem with it. What's the problem with that? You're not specifying it. So let's hear what she's saying about it.
We first need to know what exactly sexualization means, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand clearly what it means.
Well, thank you. Let's actually see if you're actually going to define it and see what you're talking about. Because I know you're showing hot girls on my screen, hot video game girls, and I'm not complaining, honestly.
Sexualization means, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand clearly what it means. It means to excessively sexualize. Now you're probably saying, look lady, we already knew that. And okay, fair enough. Then why do we continue to believe that this is comparable to this? Males get
It is comparable because a lot of guys can still choose not to look at that as in a sexual way. All right? A lot of guys still can do that. And if you compare the pictures, you're basically nitpicking. Why didn't you choose a similar picture to this one? All right, so you see, these are establishing shots of how, like, their stance and all that. All right, and this is probably what you'd see to advertise the game and all that stuff. All right, and like I don't even get your point. So this is trying to establish that these men are basically shown in their peak as men, so it could be seen as attractive and sexual. It can be seen in a sexual form. All right, and then when you go to the female characters, this is basically you taking like these characters when they're being sexual. All right, whereas when you took the picture of the men, they were not being sexual. So what are you trying to do? You're trying to basically point my eye in a specific direction so that I can see what you're saying, but that's not how you do it. Prove your point. Prove a point. Why didn't you take all these characters and shown pictures of them in normal form? Like, for example, the Street Fighter character. This is actually the best way of representing. All of these characters should have been in the same form as this one, but you basically took especially Quiet and Lara Croft like this so that you can prove a point. Like, yeah, it's different because look at her and then look at them. Like, come on, can you be at least a little bit more honest with your points?
Sexualized too is usually said to shut down any arguments of women's sexualization. Muscles are not sexual. This is sexualized. This.
Yes, they can be. That's the point. They can be. So the moment that they can be, I can still put an argument of saying, since this character can be sexualized, they should be removed. Because that's the same point you put with women. All right? Because you can still look at a hot woman and not look at her sexually. You can acknowledge that she's pretty and hot. And I think I said something like, yeah, a guy might first think of a woman and say, wow, she looks actually quite hot. But sometimes that can be non-sexual, because if someone is beautiful, they are beautiful. Doesn't mean that it's sexual, right? So I don't know where you're going with this.
Is not. Like breasts and butts aren't inherently sexual either. It's due to framing, position, and context.
That is true, all right? But then the thing is, when you're looking at a man, usually their looks are not what's at the top or what's considered as the top to being attractive and being sexual most of the time. And then with women, their looks are what drives the sexualness of things, all right? So of course, if a woman is being sexy, well, that's basically how they work. And this is an argument that doesn't work, because if you take women in real life, they do these things too. Are you going to censor them too? Like, a woman is going to try to make herself look sexy so that she can get attention, for example. Are you going to censor her? Well, no, because, well, she's empowered. But Lara Croft can be empowered looking like that. Like, she can look like that and be empowered. That's what I'm trying to get at. But then she can't, because she's a video game character and the man is going to be looking at that. So no. But when a real life woman does that, like for OnlyFans, for example, like, that's my point. Like, your point, you're not getting to what you're trying to say. Like, I don't get what you're trying to say. Maybe I'm just dumb and I don't get what you're trying to say. What do you mean over sexualized? There are women who look like this and act like this. So where is the over? Where have we crossed the line here? And there are instances where lines are crossed. I know that. But I'm saying in this context, like, for example, if you take Lara Croft and Quiet, like, the reasons why these characters look like this, there are reasons to it. And developers are just trying to be creative with these things. Sure, some of these things can be in poor taste, some of them, and I can't think of an example right now, but some of them can be in poor taste. But you have to point it out and then give your points, and then people can then either understand them or criticize them. Not just saying, giving me a picture of Lara Croft and saying, she's being over sexualized, and you're taking like one snippet of maybe a simple scene of her naked, or like especially situations like with Miranda, where Miranda from Mass Effect, where her character is basically being sexy. She has to be sexy in order for her purpose to be served, because she's supposed to be a perfect human. What is a perfect woman like? Smart and hot, right? So that would be a perfect woman, and they did that, and that's over sexualizing. Come on, spare me.
But it's because of your tits. And so, listen, that's why I'm here. All of these milk and milkies comments and milk wagons and all of that, it hurts my feelings.
Okay, the reason why I don't take things like this seriously, like women complaining about things like this, because number one, there are bad people out there, all right? And the problem is, what bad people do usually gets more attention than what actual proper people do. So then you then painting that sexualization is bad because of like 10% of people who made noise about it. I mean, come on. That's just basically the same as saying that uh, for example, you might say that all Egyptians are bad because of what happened when you take the biblical stories of what happened with Pharaoh and what happened to Moses and all that. You might say all Egyptians are bad. No, not all of them. It was just Pharaoh and the people who believed and the people who followed what Pharaoh said in an ideological standpoint. Those are the bad people. Of course, in Egypt, there were a lot of people who were saying what Pharaoh was doing was bad, but then maybe they couldn't say it because Pharaoh just got them. So that's my point. You can't say that sexuality is bad, like female sexuality is bad when it's shown on video games, because there are a lot of people who then take that and do bad things with it. But these people are in the minority. All right, and what happened to this lady on the screen right now, I don't really know, but you can read this. But this thing of her being sexualized, we don't know her background. Most probably she's a sex worker. If you're a sex worker, obviously you're going to be sexualized, so don't complain. But if she's not that and then something bad happened to her, most probably it's just a small minority of people on an internet where as one person you can beat 50 people by creating 50 accounts. So I don't know, you can't say that like sexualization is all like sexualization of characters is now bad because a girl, in this instance the girl on the screen, or someone like Quiet, has been sexualized by a lot of people. And by a lot, that doesn't mean most people or most guys. So I don't understand what your point is. I don't understand where you're trying to go with this. People can be sexual, yes they can, but who cares? All right.
To be fair, I think the majority of sexualization of male characters usually happens within the fanbase than the game itself. I might be wrong on this because obviously I haven't played every single game.
Well, you've got a point, but the thing is, the sexual appeal of a man usually is not on their body. That's why they're not sexualized by the developers, most like sexually put in sexual situations in video games. All right, because like this establishing shot of Kratos right now, a woman can look at it and say, yeah, he's sexy. All right. But then a lot of women, that's not what they're looking like. That's not on the top of what makes a man sexy. But then what makes a woman sexy is her looks. All right. So yes, like I said previously, you can look at a woman and say, well, she's hot. But then usually normal people just move on and enjoy the game. All right. No one is then playing the game just because she's sexy. Of course, there are a lot of guys, I've done it before, where I've watched a movie. Like, there are some shows like the ones on Telemundo. Like, I remember I used to stomach some of the bad writing because I thought Lola was hot. But then over time, actually, because I was watching, not because it was good, but because I was watching it, I actually started sympathizing with the character, what she was going through. I wasn't just watching it because she was hot. I started watching it because, well, Lola was hot. But not because I'm just over sexualizing things, or the creators of that series over sexualized it. Then I was like, well, yeah, there are situations where over sexualization happens, yes, but you still need to understand that even though something is not being sexualized, you're only saying that it's sexualized because the fans are now sexualizing it, and it's guys, and most guys actually talk about this. So then you start saying things like this because you're saying, oh, we don't want men to this encourages so and so. It doesn't like, just make your points. Like right now it's actually hard to attack what you're saying because you're not actually saying anything. Really, you're not really saying anything. But okay, let's just move on.
World, so I might have missed it. But if you can think of a time, please do comment. I'm not saying characters that are sexy happens within the fanbase than the game itself. I might be wrong on this because obviously I haven't played every single game in the world, so I might have missed it. but if you can think of a time, please do comment. Now, I'm not saying characters that are sexy or hot can't be in games anymore. I'll use Bayonetta as an example. Bayonetta is a character in charge of her own sexuality, similar to male characters. It's very over the top for the most part, but it's actually refreshing to see a female character so in charge of her sexuality. It's
Okay, so if Bayonetta is in charge of her sexuality with the way she acts, that's fine. But if someone like, for example, I don't know, like the Tomb Raider character Lara Croft, well, what do you mean she's not in control of her sexuality? Can you specify? But let's continue. Maybe I'm missing something.
dare I say, empowering. Seeing her so comfortable in being herself is cool. I'm not saying everyone needs to act like her to be empowered. I'm saying it's awesome she can be her true self, without anyone telling her otherwise. I know she's only a video game character, but with the recent controversy of what? A song by
Okay, so she can be whatever she wants because she's Bayonetta, right? Well, Lara Croft chose to be like that, right? According to the writing. Just like according to the writing, Bayonetta chose to be what she is. Most of these women, according to the writing, they are choosing to be what they are. And until you show me an example of that's not the case, then show me an example and then make your argument. You're not making any arguments. You're just pointing things out that everyone already knows, everyone already understands. But now she's about to talk about WAP, so let's see what's up.
Cardi B featuring Megan Thee Stallion. They both received massive backlash for singing very explicitly about sex and for sexualizing themselves. People as far as saying they were taking a step back for women, which seriously, wow. It's different when a woman.
Well, if the point of the song was just about pussy, then is that like when someone puts something out, they're trying to express something about themselves and the group that they might be sorry about that, in the group that they might be representing, right? So if I put out a story about a guy who is struggling with life, for example, like financially, all right, guys who are in those situations, and I'm trying to represent, like, it's not like I'm directly trying to represent them, but usually that's the case. But usually when that's happening, that representation happens still. But then look at WAP. WAP, I didn't listen to the song many times for me to remember the lyrics, but what I got from it is just basically WAP, WAP, pussy, pussy, WAP, WAP, WAP. So is that all to women? If she's representing women like that, then yes, women are going to be like, yeah, I'm not like that. All right, so that's the case with representation. And then the over sexualization controversy there is basically that's all she's talking about. So people might think, well, and people are allowed to have their own opinion, but basically people might think, well, that's not all that is there for women. And Cardi B is basically showing a message like that, like, well, my pussy, my pussy. So people might not like that, and it's okay if people don't like that. Your problem is people didn't like that. There's a problem. No, that's not the case. Because what she does has a lot of problems to it. She's basically reducing women to their pussy. So yeah, I can see that as a problem. But that's not comparable to people seeing SJW art as a problem. Because, well, the art most of the time is not good. And then it's now replacing art that's good. Because we don't mind if you have your SJW art. It's just that if you want something changed, change it in your own art. Not come and complain about over-sexualization, for example, and not give actual points. And then you say things like this, like, oh, she got so much backlash and all that. But anyways, I'm actually now falling asleep talking about this because this is all pointless. But well, I'm making a video out of it, so yeah, let's go on.
Is in charge of how she presents herself, not being shaped by how others see them. They choose how others see them. They are grown adult women. They can present themselves however they like.
Yes, they can do whatever they want, but then people are not expected to like it. All right, people can still see. That's one thing about putting yourself out there. People can criticize you. People have thoughts, right? They can think. So people can say, well, the reason why I think Cardi B is setting women back is because of this and that. Well, yeah, they can think that, and if it's valid, then it's valid. If it's not valid, it's not valid. So I don't know what the problem is here. I think again, you need to specify what the issue is with people objecting what Cardi B does. What you could have done was dissect a few things that people said against Cardi B's video or over sexualization. Like when people turn against that, you should show actual instances and then fight it with facts and points. Not just say, well, I don't like that people didn't like the video of WAP. What are you saying? What are you actually saying? And that explains why there's almost a 50-50% with the like and dislike ratio. It's just that this video hasn't been as exposed to the public as it should, so that people can get your points, but people can still pick them apart and see what your points say in the good side and the bad side. People can do that. But you're saying that it's bad. Like it's bad that Cardi B got the backlash that she got, and I don't even know how we got here. Like I feel like we're now away from the topic that we started talking about in over 30 minutes now. But well, let's just move on and finish this stuff up.
However, hypersexualized media is an issue, and I don't think the song should have been marketed on TikTok, especially considering the majority of the users are children who are attempting to do this dance. Completely off topic, I'm sorry. Again, I'm not saying everyone needs to act like them. I'm saying that choosing how you present yourself is very powerful. Living in
Yes, and who says that Lara Croft didn't choose to present herself like that in the game? Or any other character? Who says that they didn't? Can you show me a point where it shows that they didn't choose to represent themselves, like the gods basically forced them to be represented like that? Yeah, there are some cases, like I watched some videos when they were talking about so for example Tomb Raider, her evolution, right? And there were some points where she was like, her sexuality was just forced, her being sexy was forced. Then if those cases are the case, then that's fine. You can complain about that, but point it out and show it, not just say out of the blue like, oh, these characters being sexualized is a problem. Who says that they didn't choose that? Who says? To be honest, who actually said that? You need to show that, so that we can actually dissect that, not just say that the fact that they look like that, they're being over sexualized. I mean, come on.
a society that tells you what you should or shouldn't be, and to go against that, to truly be able to be yourself, is wonderful. Unfortunately, it's not a luxury many people can enjoy in life, but choice is a very powerful thing, and it's sad that that's the case, because it should simply be the norm to be able to express yourself however you want.
Yes, but SJWs don't allow that, because if The Witcher wanted to express a certain sacred part of their history with The Witcher, they can't, because, well, they're being racist for not having black people. They can't express themselves. What about that? Like, there were so many articles, like, I didn't get it. There were so many articles that were saying that The Witcher games are racist because they don't have black people or Asians, or because Asians were not in that area at the time. So, and I don't want to dissect that, but my point is, they expressed their media like that. You said that that's bad. You're saying, in your video, you're basically arguing that Lara Croft didn't have a choice in the way she looks. So, how? Again, the how is very important here for me to be able to dissect that. So, yeah, that's my point. I don't think there's anything else I can say on top of that.
Unless you're causing harm on someone else, don't do that. It's why when you see the over-sexualization of women in media, it's usually not their own choice for being sexualized. People are not mad at the...
Okay, in these situations, it depends on the context. You're using just a clip of a cartoon character who's half naked on the bed being taken pictures. What if, I don't know what this cartoon is anyways, but what if this is a story about how she was sexually abused by this guy? What if that's the story? How is that over sexualization? That's the damn story. Oh gosh, this is why SJWs don't like her points. Her points are not working. They're not working. I don't get what she's trying to say. I don't see. Well, okay, if that was the case, if this was a story about how she got sexually abused by this guy, all right, why is this wrong? Why is that wrong? She's not saying so. That's where my problem is.
Characters are trying to take away hot characters. They want characters that aren't exploiting the image of women, making them into objects.
Well, what do you mean exploiting an image of a woman? Women did do that on their own. Like, if you go on Twitter, like, for example, there are some women out there on the internet who sexualize themselves and they're champion. They said she's taking, like, let's rewind back to Cardi B. You're saying that she's empowered for doing that, but at the same time, she's showing off her, like, the figure of a woman. How is that different from a video game? How is that? I would actually bet money that there are characters who have the same body shape, for example, as Cardi B. And Cardi B is basically showing off her body. Why can't video game characters do that? It's now sexist and over-sexualization if she does it. If a video game does it. I don't get it. Is it because it's made by men? I don't know. Like, you need to specify. You need to specify what your issue with this is. But, well, I don't know. Like, you're not making any sense.
To watch and lust over. It's gross, degrading, and downright insulting. Because fiction does affect reality, what we see in the media does affect.
Okay, you need to specify how fiction affects reality. For example, playing a video game doesn't automatically make you a violent psychopath. If I play GTA, I'm not going to go outside trying to kill everyone I see with a car. I'm not going to want to do that. If I play a video game where I see a sexy woman, I'm not going to be a sexist person just by seeing it or by thinking that she's sexy. I'm not going to be a sexist. You need to specify how they affect. You can say, well, a video game can pass a message that can make you think about it, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to change just because of the message. That's not how it works. Like things like this, you need to specify. You need to specify what you mean. If you're saying that video games affect people in reality, how? Then we start talking about it. Not just saying video games. It's just me saying like the color blue is bad. Why? You see, the why usually comes after. But because this is a video, I would like to, I don't think I'm going to contact her, but I would like to actually be able to be in contact with her so that we can actually have this discussion, because that would be interesting. So you need to specify all of these things. This video is getting way too long.
Affect how we view things in the real world. This can be positive, but also extremely damaging.
Alright, so I'm going to end the video here. So the problem with the video, and I watched the whole video, and she brings up something, but then she doesn't say how it affects anyone. Just with the example where she says that video games can affect someone in real life, whether positive or negative. You can give like a smart person and a person who basically wants to have their points taken seriously would say something like, well, video games do this and it's positive because of this and that, and they're negative because of this and that. And then that's when you can start dissecting something. If you're just pointing things out that everyone already sees and knows, well, and you're not backing them up, no one will really care. So yeah, like right now I left a comment here. So there you go. You can actually read it right here if you agree with what I said. But basically I was just saying how, and the rest of the comment actually talks about how the other stuff that she talked about in the later video. So if this video actually gets a little bit of traction, I can do a part 2. But basically what she's saying doesn't make sense, in the sense that she's not giving reasons to her accusations. She's like someone who's just accusing someone of something, and they're not actually then providing the evidence or the proof that this is what they did, or that accusation doesn't work if there's no evidence. So yeah, with that, I'm going to end the video. So like and sub if you like it, then sub to see more. And that's it for me. I'm Frosty and I'm out.